Oh boy. Well, everything's gone. The apple's gone. Power bars are gone. Let's check the camera out. All right. Everything's gone. Okay. Let's see how many clips we've got here. 9 clips. Huh. All right, so there's 9 clips on this camera. And this time the apples were taken. The camera did not fall over. When I get below, we'll find out who the culprit is.
This is British Columbia, a stunning landscape in Western Canada. Since the first days of exploration, the stories of a big, hairy ape living here have endured. They're not considered a myth by the local residents. Lots of jokes can be made about the Loch Ness Monster, unicorns, and even Ogopogo, but no one ever jokes about their encounter with a Bigfoot. So why do I seek answers about Sasquatch? Why not just stick to surviving? I have no claim of seeing anything. So why research a myth? Well, all myths are rooted in some kind of meaning.
I'm not a Bigfoot researcher. I'm not even really a Sasquatch enthusiast. I'm just an outdoor adventurer, a survival instructor, and I've had my own experiences that have left me with questions. And I want to try and get the answers to those questions. But along the way, I've been asked a lot of questions now. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why don't you have cameras up on the apples? Why don't you have other cameras buried? Why don't you use this scent or that? All right, well, that's what I'm doing. It's going for broke. It's, as I call it, the shotgun approach. Let's put everything out there and see what we get.
The skeptics and the advocates alike must be willing to look at whatever evidence exists without blinders on. They must be willing to accept, if found to be indisputable, certain pieces of evidence as fact. Of course, it's just what those facts are that matter. So ruling out human hoaxing and wildlife is imperative. The problem for Bigfoot advocates is that there is yet to be indisputable evidence. There is yet to be found a smoking gun. The problem for the skeptic is that the eyewitness accounts are increasing every year. It's going to take forensic study to uncover the truth.
What I really want to try this time is sort of going for broke. And so I'm going to start by putting a camera right in here and have it pointing out. All right, let's get started. That's really nothing but a lens. It doesn't make any sound, that's the beauty of it, but it also doesn't record anything. It's got to be tethered to a recording unit, and I've got to bury that because it makes sound.
Eliminating all sounds and lights on hidden cameras will go a long way towards achieving a successful stealth approach.
Okay, so this is real simple. It's set on motion detect, so it will not record unless something moves in front of it. And it can record at night in the dark. It'll switch to infrared light on its own because it's got little sensors. What I want to do is just bury this whole thing. So I've got the plastic container, and hopefully if it has a light or it makes a sound, well, that won't be seen by anything. That's the point. And I'll leave that little lens up there in the stump pointing this way. The idea being that a Sasquatch comes from the outer bush because he smells all the stuff going on down there with everything that we're setting up and walks right past this camera. It's a long shot, but it's worth it. Now let's stir it up a little bit here, and I'm going to put I've got to put something odd, something different, unique that wouldn't normally be up there. So I have pure beaver caster scent. This stuff stinks. And I'm gonna put it in front of my first camera. Let's put the scent just right here on this log. Oh. Ooh. Yeah, it's pungent. Okay. Let's put a little bit of this stuff here.
Anything living here will be used to the smells, so the idea is to change things up a bit and promote some curiosity.
Ugh. Got it all over my fingers. Ugh. All right. So that should stink up the place a bit and see if it gets any reaction for me.
Bigfoot filmmaker Doug Hychik and I discussed this confuse and conquer idea, where I'll set up nearly 30 different stations, including pheromone chips, audio recorders, various cameras, food as bait, DNA collection traps. But will all of this be enough to capture an image of something reported to be the most elusive being on the planet?
So here's the thought. Pheromone chip as some sort of strange and crazy attractant. The apple as a kind of offering or bait. Musical instrument just because, you never know. Maybe someone will play with it, who knows? I have no idea. Down below, I've got the audio recorder buried in the ground. And then one step below that, I've got a DNA trap. This is really about confusion here. One thing I've avoided here is using an IR camera, a camera with an infrared light. So there's no constant beam or anything like that. And I don't know, will the apple actually bring something in? Will the pheromone chip drive something crazy? When it gets here, whatever it might be it deer or elk or bear, will it knock the musical instruments? I don't know, but I've got a recording device catching whatever sound is going to happen here, but no camera. However, I've got a DNA trap just set below here, so if anything is going to happen to step on that area, I'll get some DNA.
But what's it going to take to convince anyone? DNA from an unknown primate species has already been gathered in Washington state and largely ignored.
Yeah, this will work perfect.
Perhaps a combination of gathered evidence can be scrutinized scientifically.
So for this station, I've done quite a number of things. Got the apple, pheromone chip, and this time I've set up a camera. Hopefully, if something does get excited over either the apple or the pheromone chip, the camera will catch it this time.
There's an absence of proven, consistent methods, so I'm setting each station up a little different from the last. A camera here, an audio recorder there, with bait, without bait. Something's got to work.
Each time, what I really want to do is just get a little bit closer to something authentic, something that just might work. At the very least, if it brings in a wolf or a fox or a grizzly, then I know it's working. And this is one of those times where I'm taking the next step. Let's see how he likes this little guy. Perfect. Call that my grouse cam. Let's put this guy here. Now, I've still got to bury the recorder.
If it is just an ape, albeit an intelligent one, then sooner or later we should be able to outwit it. Unless, of course, it's smarter than us.
All right, so the significance of this particular setup is that I've got the grouse up there with a camera set, all ready to go. The wire runs all the way down the hill, and the recorder's down there. But look at this. Look at this. See that? Behind me? That was one of the first Sasquatch structures that I was ever shown. So I basically just violated their main area. Let's see how they like that. Maybe they'll take it all out on the grouse.
It's vital for me to gather all the evidence in the area that I can. even if I think I already know what it is or isn't. And casting tracks is a big part of Sasquatch researchers' methodology.
All this is here is hairspray. Helps to lock things in place there.
Hydrocal is an inexpensive and easy substance to work with for casting tracks.
Leave that for a few hours, we're good to go.
But are they Sasquatch tracks? It's too easy to make mistakes, and even easier to make wishful assumptions.
Just washing off these casted bear tracks to get a better look at them. They really are massive. That's huge. There's my hand. That's a grizzly bear track. Now this one here is the one that's really important to me. Now look at that. Now doesn't that look like a Bigfoot track? The reason being is that what has happened here is the bear walks in his own tracks, and it can create a bit of an optical illusion and look like a Bigfoot track. You see, here's where he stepped once, but then he followed it by stepping again here. Put them all together, and look at that. Now, doesn't that look like a Bigfoot track? And that's one way that people can be fooled by tracks when they see them. And they say, no, it was huge. It was, you know, what's that, 14, 15 inches long. And it ends up looking like that. 1, 2, 3.
It's part of my job to push the Bigfoot enthusiasts and researchers out of their own comfort zones. For years, most of them have sat on what they believe and claim to be real evidence and proof of the existence of Bigfoot. And though I enter their areas of research with respect for their methods, I bring with me my own set of challenges to their notions. Todd Standing, considered to be one of the most controversial researchers in the field of study, has no issue with accepting any challenge I throw at him, including returning to places of terror.
Todd and I are just heading out into the bush here to spend some time in an area that Todd is no stranger to. It's a spot where he had one of his most significant and horrifying experiences, heading out to the rock where he was surrounded by Sasquatch, and all he had really was a little camera and some flares. And he hasn't been back there since. And I was right here by this rock. And since that night, Todd has not ever returned to this rock at night. This is it. This is the first time. And we're going to sit it out here for a number of hours and just see what happens. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a full moon.
At the time of Todd's encounter, he had an older version camera with a weak nightlight, and the flare that was short-lived. This time, I don't want to make the same mistake.
Now, if only Todd could have had a light like I do, it would have made a big difference for him. This infrared light that you're watching me with right now is just the onboard infrared with the camera. If I turn on the extra one, this is the mid-level, it's really bright, but look how far. All of a sudden you can see behind me, there's Todd. You can see up in the bush. Now, if we bring into it this massive infrared light, and let me show you how this looks. Here you are with the regular camera light. Here it is with the mid-level. And here it is with the spotlight. What a difference it would have made.
It's important to understand that only the camera can see this imagery. To the human eye, it's still pitch black.
Now, it's argued in some circles that certain creatures, potentially the Sasquatch, can see the infrared lights. I mean, I can see these red lights right now that are making this. Todd doesn't agree with that. He just feels that when they're off in the distance and you're shooting that infrared light, they cannot see it. And so the potential is there to get one caught on film, because just like any biological being, they're out in the dark, they have their night vision, but infrared is something different altogether. Even though recently it's been proved that caribou can see ultraviolet light, but that's the other end of the spectrum. That's a different thing altogether. So we're going to sit here for a few hours. I guess in some ways, hope we don't get the same reaction Todd got those years ago. Maybe something a little more gentle.
You hear that? No?
Yes.
Did you hear that?
Yes, something was throwing at us. And that's what got me out. Was not just the growl, but the throwing of...
Something, sounds like something was thrown.
Yeah.
Something small, nothing big. There's another one.
Yeah, I heard that too. Definitely, that something was thrown.
Huh.
This is exactly how it started with me.
Wind is still, nothing's moving. If something big made a sound, we would hear it. If something small made a sound, we might miss it. We gave a hoop before we came in, given one hoop here. It could be stuff just falling off the trees, but already we've heard two little things up and behind me, this side of me. Sound like little things being thrown. Just gonna sit it out here in the dark and see what happens.
The nearby rapids drown out much of the sounds this night. Was something small physically tossed in our direction? Or did a little toad jump on a dry leaf? Assumptions can be dangerously misleading. A few small things, perhaps twigs, fell from the trees close to where Todd and I waited in the bush last night. But that was all. However, I'm frustrated by Todd's reaction to the same event, or non-event, depending on how you look at it. His quote the next morning was that they threw rocks at us. To me, this is a gross misrepresentation of the reality. Normally, I'd shoot Todd or any other researcher down when I sense that bit of overzealousness. But I let this one go and proceeded to head up to the top of the mountain by helicopter, spend the night in what Todd considers to be his greatest spot, a Sasquatch action. The true ruggedness of the mountains are winning the day. We can't find a single spot to land the helicopter, so we have to move to Plan B and climb. The crew follows me for a short distance before I choose to take a different route up the mountain than Todd's, so that my experience of being alone in what is claimed to be prolific Bigfoot territory may be enhanced.
Guess I better bring you with me. There is no traveling fast in the wilderness, especially straight uphill. The best thing is to think like an animal, move slow, just lumber along, break often, keep a nice, even, slow pace. And that way, if you do need to get out of something fast later, you don't have to rely just on adrenaline. You can have adrenaline and some reserve strength. So I'm gonna go up this mountain a little bit at a time. It's gonna be a long day.
Advocates of Bigfoot simply point to a print in the ground and demand an answer, and that's reasonable. Skeptics say, show me the body, and that's also reasonable. Whatever it is, it's a fact. What it's a fact of is the unknown, and even in the name of science, we should at least be seeking an answer for it, and that'll take effort, including climbing mountains. Farther below, my cameras remain on and hidden, and who knows what image they'll capture. Whatever it is, it'll be evidence pointing to one conclusion or another. I'm prepared to spend a couple of nights on the top of this mountain, including one alone, as an attempt to peek over to one side of the skeptical fence I normally sit upon.
Wow, I made it all the way to the top, to where we were last year. There's the fire pit. In terms of pure survival, if I wanted to be sort of an elusive, secretive species existing up here, and let's say I caught salmon and ate elk, caught elk and ate elk, deer, small mammals, picked a lot of roots, ate pine needles and grasses and sedges and berries, this is the place to do it. No matter how much I lament the loss of prime, beautiful, and pristine habitat, and I do. The fact is, there's also a lot of incredibly beautiful places and vast reaching areas where anything could survive. And this is one of those places.
You can't sit on the couch. Only boots on the ground will make you realize just how big, beautiful, and vast the North American forests truly are.
Up there is where Todd calls the Forbidden Zone, the area where he refused to go. Down here is his spot, up there is their spot, is what he said. But he's agreed with me that this year we can push the envelope and push into that territory. So I'm not gonna wait for him. I'll take a little hike up there now.
A year ago, I went easy on Todd and his claims of Bigfoot activity. This time, I'm pushing the envelope. I'm at the top of a mountain in British Columbia, where a year earlier I heard something banging rocks together, only feet from where I slept.
Okay, so I just heard the strangest sound. It was like someone taking a couple of rocks and just banging them together really fast. And then just like a sound of something substantial just in the bush. And we're talking about maybe 20 feet away from me. But either way, what I just heard was loud, distinct. I don't know what time it is, but it's pre-dawn. And I'm just gonna lie here and see what else happens.
That was a year ago. This time, Todd will join me up here for a night, and tomorrow night, I'll stay alone.
So, here's the barrier. So he doesn't go past this log. Gotta cross the street sooner or later.
This is the higher ground on the mountain that Todd had reserved for what he believes is a group of Sasquatch. He has refused to go here for fear of getting them angry or scaring them off. So my act, he believes, would be an act of defiance to them by crossing the arbitrary barrier he himself established. This time Todd is good with my methods. He said try anything. After all, he spent many years trying to convince the public of what he knows to be real, and it's not working. Todd finally arrived about 40 minutes behind me, and we proceeded to look at his new methods to try to catch DNA evidence of a species known as Gigantopithecus. It's fairly ingenious, too, using natural burrs glued to branches to catch hair for DNA testing.
All it takes is one. Oh, those are hairs, dude. There's still one in there. Look at that. Those are definitely hairs. Yeah, I can see it. Short, very short, but...
The collecting of DNA remains as one of the most controversial aspects of the phenomenon known as Sasquatch. On several occasions, DNA has been gathered and claimed by official university labs to be some kind of human-ape hybrid. Later, Todd would test this small bit of hair, and it turns out to be 95% human DNA, 5% unknown.
Actually, I brought up a couple of the infrared trail cams, so I'm gonna set them up.
Todd is feeling frustrated with the rest of the world's progress in accepting the existence of what he believes is Gigantopithecus, a bipedal ape. And so for the first time, he's allowing me to put out cameras and audio devices in an effort to collect evidence. These are combined with his usual methods of putting apples on a tree as gifts to entice something. The apples are stuck well onto the tree at about 15 and 7-foot reaches, with the hopes of ruling out sheep or bears unwilling to climb. With the bait firmly in place, we'll wait out the night, about 100 yards higher on the mountain. With stories ranging from friendship to even fatal abductions, all pointing to Bigfoot, it's only my strong sense of skepticism and my comfort level in the wilderness that enables me to be out here at all. Most of what I expect to happen is nothing. Even that is an answer. What's becoming more and more difficult for me, as time and the research carries on, is determining exactly what answer it is I'm looking for.
All right, so I've got a couple of things set up for the night, just really it's all in preparation of potential interaction with something that a lot of people claim is called Sasquatch, Bigfoot. I've actually packed my stuff, my GPS satellite locator, I've got my knife and bear bangers and things like that, and my boots are in my sleeping bag. And that harkens back to a story I heard of a trapper that was actually picked up, sleeping bag and all, and carried off and kidnapped by a family of Sasquatch. This happened in 1924, but he didn't tell his story really in full till many years later, and he even swore the story before a judge as having been true. He was kidnapped and held for a couple of days in a cave with a family of Sasquatch. But because there had been activity happening a couple of nights before that, that's what he did. He had stuff with him inside his bag, and he had also, actually his backpack got picked up too, so the Sasquatch picked up him and his backpack and carried him for 2 or 3 hours off into the wilderness. So, if that happens to me, I got all my stuff with me.
Last night was uneventful, so my first order of the day is to head 100 yards down the mountain and see if anything took the apples that we stuck on the tree.
Can't be. I have to see this with my own eyes. Well, let me show you the disappointing part first. I'm left with only one of two alternatives. Either Todd is indeed a masterful, skillful hoaxer, or something came in and took these apples, pushed over the camera, went up about 15 feet in the tree, and took all the apples. Huh. I don't know what to think anymore, and I've got to spin my net out here alone.
The camera's knocked over. If they didn't pick up that camera before they took these apples, there's no way they picked up that camera first. I think we did. I think
Pretty
we got
intense.
Sasquatch footage on there.
I don't know.
I do. I feel it.
Now, I'm nervous. Todd is clearly excited. This is a man who's had to put up with a lot of controversy over the years, a lot of claims of hoaxing and fraud. And I've had a lot of people say, look, he's frauding you, he's hoaxing you. The hope, and I suppose Todd's dream, is that that camera got shots before it fell over. Honestly, this is the most significant experience I've had, because the plausibility of Todd going down there and doing that is pretty low, to be honest with you. So, Todd will leave not too long from now. We'll get another apple up on that tree, put out some power bars, and then I'm here for the night alone, and we'll see what happens. I'll certainly be keeping my eyes and ears open. I don't think tonight's gonna be a night I'm gonna sleep a lot.
The camera images proved nothing either way. It was likely knocked over by this little culprit, a pika, a kind of rodent. But knowing this doesn't answer the question of what took the apples 15 feet up the tree. After helping me put apples and chocolate bars back up in the tree, Todd will leave me alone on the mountaintop, which at the very least will rule out any chance of him hoaxing me if something happens tonight.
When we first came on the site here, I made it here long before Todd did. And I found these depressions in the ground that are pretty hard to explain, other than potentially grizzly bear, I think, but a very big grizzly bear at that. This track stood out. You can see the indentations in the ground here are very heavy. Now, it's potential that it was simply a rock that was here, and the rock eventually came out of the ground. This is a heavy, heavy stamp in the ground. And, you know, maybe this is now where suggestion can be very powerful, but I can see the toe prints. And Todd came later and saw it, and he thought, of course, knowing Todd, he absolutely said, it's a Bigfoot print. And that's the danger of being so absorbed in the subject matter. On the other hand, that's the benefit of being so absorbed in the subject matter. If you go out looking for grizzly, you'll find grizzly. If you go out looking for elk, you'll find elk. If you go out looking for Sasquatch,
I'm only looking for answers. Ironically, the greatest argument is not between the skeptics and the believers. It's among the Bigfoot advocates themselves. No one can agree on what it is that we are all trying to find. Here in Radium Springs, British Columbia, Todd Standing believes they are the long-hidden offspring of a species of humanoid called Gigantopithecus. He may be right. And even though his own evidence is considered dubious and fake by many people, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because whether Todd is telling the truth or not, the fact remains, there are thousands of other people making the very same claim.
You have to be of two minds out here. The job at hand, what is that? I'm a filmmaker, documentarian. But I'm also a survival instructor. And I know how dangerous it is out here, and how one wrong step, one missed beat, could leave me in a very precarious situation. Just as it is when I'm out doing pure survival and I'm not on the hunt for Bigfoot. I've got to take real care. Make every step count. Monitor my food. I don't know if I'm going to even make it down off this mountain, so I've got to hold on to the food that I've got. It's very little, just be careful with it. Same thing for the water. Most importantly, I've got to stay warm at night. If nothing happens out here tonight, that's what I'll say tomorrow morning. Nothing happened. I thought I was going to be saying that this morning. I truly thought I'd go down, see all those apples on the tree and go, well, you know, Todd claims there's a couple of wood knocks. Sure, whatever. But instead I went down and all those apples were gone. I can't explain that. Maybe a bird, but I haven't seen any ravens or any of the sort come around at all. Anything that has been here has been little songbirds and one gray jay.
not going to carry off those 3 apples. So what did?
What took the apples last night? What banged rocks together here last year? What has left suspicious-looking tracks in hard-packed ground? Maybe tonight, I'll find out.
This is about halfway between where I am, where the apples are. What I've done is I've picked a sort of place of cover here and put up my second camera. It should be filming me right now. For now, I've changed the card in the camera that was on the apples, put up the apple, 2 power bars, move the camera a bit so it's secure now and it won't fall over. Put a camera in here, both are running now. I'll come down later tonight, do a couple of hoops, maybe a wood knock, and I'll leave my audio recorder somewhere around here as well, just buried and hidden for sound. And then I gotta sit through the night on the top of this mountain.
I'm here to get the right bit of footage that might blow the lid off of this phenomenon, or, by my persistent search and coming up with nothing, proving more that there is nothing out here in the first place.
All right, apple's still in its place. Camera's set up, hopefully will work. Audio recorder's in, turned on. Go back up and tend my fire.
In this way, being alone at the top of the mountain, I become the bait.
The whole idea about the fire is simple. Apparently, the Sasquatch feel more comfortable because they can see you, and you can't really see them. So a lot of times, nice big fire is when activity happens. People say, oh, something came around, it was standing on the edge in the darkness, and it came in close or whatever, and the fire seems to do the trick. I'm staying outside tonight just because I want to. I want to have a good clear view, but in other locations, I'll stay inside a tent and see how that works.
As my night continues, things get weird. I see large, strange lights over a distant mountain hovering in the sky. If it was a jet, it would have been 5 times bigger than the Concorde. 4 massive lights sat still and unmoving. By the time I set up my camera, they were gone. I shrugged it off and tried to get some sleep.
Oh man, I just had the most insane dream. I fell asleep and fire got cold, and I dreamt that a Sasquatch came and was sitting on top of me and not letting me get up. And it became super vivid just for that moment, you know, in between dream and awake, where you think it's real. I lit a big fire.
We've all had vivid dreams, but this went beyond that. It felt like a big set of buttocks holding me down, while my head was completely engulfed inside the mummy sleeping bag. I struggled to get my upper arm free and to pull my head out from the bag, at this point wide awake and still feeling trapped. And the second I did get my face out of the bag, the feeling disappeared. Perhaps just a coincidental dream. I can't dispute that. But it sure didn't feel like one. The next morning, things get even stranger.
Oh boy. Well, everything's gone. The apple's gone. Power bars are gone. All right, well, I'm gonna turn around and look at the camera. I hope it's still upright. And it is. Let's check the camera out. All right. Everything's gone. Okay. Let's see how many clips we've got here. 9 clips. Huh. All right, so there's 9 clips on this camera. And this time the apples were taken. The camera did not fall over. When I get below, we'll find out who the culprit is.
So let's establish the efficiency of the trail cams. They're motion triggered with about a half-second delay, but they're very sensitive. Here are a series of shots from the base of the mountain where they were set off by something quickly going through the field of vision. Even dust particles will trigger it to record. Now, for some reason, with nothing showing as having just run through the screen, here is a recorded image of the apple in its place throughout the night. In this first clip, I've highlighted the apple with a light circle. Now, did you see that? The apple was well stuck on a branch, pointing up and away from the ground, so gravitational pull shouldn't have pulled it off. But in the second clip, it just disappears. It just vanishes, along with 3 chocolate bars I'd put on the other branches, and nothing was caught on film. Let's look at the 2 clips again in real time. There's nothing to indicate what set off the camera into recording. Now there. Do you see that at the bottom? What was that? Let's watch it again in real time once more, and this time watch the branches on the middle tree, then the bottom left of the screen. Now here it is blown up in real time. And here it is in slow motion. Now let's freeze frame on the culprit. What is that? Whatever it is, it has to be big enough to make a large tree shake. But here's the real rub. That spot where you see it pop up is at least 6 feet high off the ground. The skeptic would say the apple somehow simply fell off its perch, even though it was well stuck onto a branch. And it triggered the camera, but fell out of view. Once on the ground, something came and took every last piece of it. The missing chocolate bars, well, we'll have to ignore that for now. The creature at the bottom left of the screen was either a sheep on its hind legs, the top of a grizzly bear who has no ears, and left me alone just 100 yards away while I slept. My dream of being sat on was just a coincidental dream. The lights in the sky, a very large jet. The advocates would say it's Bigfoot.